In the year 37 AD, the Roman Emperor Tiberius issued an unusual and historically unprecedented demand to the Germanic tribes. His battle-hardened legions had recently subdued along the Rhine frontier. He did not demand gold, silver, slaves, or any of the typical tributes that conquering empires extracted from defeated peoples throughout ancient history. He demanded a root vegetable. Specifically, he demanded regular scheduled shipments of a sweet white root that Roman nobility had discovered growing abundantly in the cold northern provinces beyond the traditional boundaries of Mediterranean civilization. The emperor considered this humble vegetable so vastly superior to anything available in the fertile Italian heartland that he made its continued delivery a formal condition of peace with the Germanic peoples he had conquered. The root he demanded was considerably sweeter than any carrot variety that existed at that time in recorded history. It could be harvested during the brutally frozen winter months when absolutely no other fresh vegetable was available anywhere across the vast Roman Empire. It grew back reliably year after year from the same original planting without any need to purchase, trade for, or carefully save seeds for the following season. It thrived vigorously in the cold, wet climates of northern Europe, where delicate Mediterranean crops struggled desperately to survive even a single season. This remarkable vegetable sustained Roman armies marching through hostile territory, medieval peasants surviving harsh winters, monastery gardens maintaining food security through dark ages, and royal kitchens preparing feasts for nobility across Europe for over 1,500 years of continuous documented cultivation. Every serious gardener from the chaotic fall of Rome through the cultural flowering of the Renaissance grew this essential crop as a primary winter food source that could be relied upon completely. Cookbooks from every European nation included detailed recipes for preparing it in dozens of different ways. Agricultural texts written across centuries consistently praised its reliability, exceptional productivity, and superior flavor compared to every alternative root vegetable available to European gardeners. Then, something curious and historically significant happened during the 17th century that changed European food production permanently and irreversibly. Dutch plant breeders developed a new variety of carrot with bright orange flesh that caught the attention of European markets. This novelty carrot had one characteristic that the traditional sweet root lacked entirely. It was an annual plant that died completely after harvest, requiring farmers to purchase new seeds every single growing season. Within 2 centuries, the perennial root that had fed Europe for over a millennium virtually disappeared from cultivation. The vegetable is called Skirret, and most people living today have never heard of it, despite its 15 centuries of documented importance. This is the story of the root vegetable that Emperor Tiberius valued above gold, the perennial crop that produces forever from a single planting, and the seed industry that buried it to ensure you would buy their annual carrots every year for the rest of your life. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. Let's begin. The Botany of Skirret explains precisely why this humble root outperformed carrots by every measure that actually matters to people who grow there. Own food, rather than depending on commercial agriculture, Skirret is a true herbaceous perennial that regrows automatically and reliably from its established root system year after year without any replanting required whatsoever. A gardener plants Skirret exactly once and then harvests from that same original planting for 5, 10, or even more years of continuous, reliable production without additional investment. The plant naturally expands its root cluster annually, actually increasing total yields over time rather than requiring the annual soil preparation. Expensive seed purchase, frustrating germination, uncertainty, and tedious thinning labor that carrots demand every single growing season, without exception. The edible roots themselves grow in attractive clusters of 6 to 12 individual fingers, radiating outward from a central crown. Each individual finger closely resembles a small white carrot in overall shape, but delivers flavor that historical accounts spanning 15 centuries consistently describe as noticeably sweeter, pleasantly nuttier, and far more complex than any carrot variety available to modern gardeners today. The texture, when properly cooked, becomes remarkably creamy and meltingly tender in ways that even the finest carrot varieties simply cannot replicate, regardless of preparation, method, or cooking technique employed. Winter harvest capability decisively separates skirret from virtually all other root vegetables in terms of practical value to families seeking genuine food security. The roots actually become measurably sweeter after exposure to hard frost as stored starches convert chemically to simple sugars in direct response to cold temperatures. Experienced gardeners can dig skirret from solidly frozen ground throughout the entire winter season when absolutely nothing else fresh is available from even the most productive garden. This remarkable characteristic made skirret absolutely essential for food security in northern climates, where harsh winter conditions lasted 6 months or considerably longer. The plant tolerates partial shade conditions that would reduce carrot production dramatically to the point of failure. Skirret evolved naturally in woodland edge environments where filtered dappled sunlight was the expected norm rather than the exception. This valuable shade tolerance allows productive cultivation in locations that receive only 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight daily. Gardeners with limited sunny garden space can grow abundant skirret where carrots would produce only disappointing spindly roots, not worth the effort of harvesting. Pest and disease resistance in skirret exceeds carrots significantly. The carrot rust fly that devastates carrot crops shows minimal interest in skirret. The fungal diseases that rot carrots in storage rarely affect skirret roots. The plant's perennial nature means established root systems have developed robust health that first-year annual carrots can never achieve. Propagation requires no seed purchase after the initial planting. Gardeners divide the root clusters in spring or fall exactly as they would divide any perennial flower. Each division becomes a new productive plant within a single season. The mathematics of division mean that a gardener starting with a single skirret plant can have dozens within a few years without spending another penny on propagation material. The history of skirret cultivation demonstrates that this vegetable was not merely adequate, but actively preferred over alternatives for 15 centuries of continuous European agriculture. Chinese records document skirret cultivation extending back over 2,000 years before the plant ever reached European awareness. The vegetable spread westward along trade routes until it reached the Roman Empire sometime during the 1st century of the Common Era. Roman agriculturalists immediately recognized skirret's value and began systematic cultivation throughout the provinces. The plant adapted readily to European conditions and quickly became established in gardens across the continent. Emperor Tiberius's demand for skirret as tribute from Germanic tribes represents the earliest firmly dated European documentation of the crop's importance. Historical records confirm that Tiberius considered skirret superior to any root vegetable available from Roman territories. The emperor's refined palate, shaped by access to the finest foods the ancient world could provide, judged this northern root worthy of imperial attention. His tribute demand ensured steady supply to Roman kitchens throughout his reign. Medieval monastery gardens maintained skirret cultivation through the centuries following Rome's collapse. Monastic agricultural records from across Europe document skirret as a standard garden crop alongside other essential vegetables. The monks who preserved classical knowledge through the early medieval period also preserved the crops that classical civilization had valued. Skirret survived the disruption of empire because monasteries recognized its practical value. Medieval peasant gardens grew skirret as winter food security that no annual crop could provide. Families facing long winters without refrigeration or reliable food storage depended on crops that could remain viable in frozen ground until needed. Skirret delivered exactly this capability while also reducing the labor and expense of annual replanting. Peasant economies that operated on thin margins valued perennial vegetables highly. Renaissance cookbooks across Europe included multiple skirret recipes, indicating continued popularity among all social classes. English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish culinary texts from the 15th through 17th centuries all document skirret preparation methods. The vegetable appeared in simple peasant dishes and elaborate noble banquets with equal frequency. No evidence suggests that skirret was declining in popularity or being replaced by superior alternatives. Then the orange carrot arrived, and everything changed within a remarkably short historical period. The Dutch breeding programs that created the modern orange carrot fundamentally and permanently restructured European vegetable production around commercial seed sales rather than gardener independence. Traditional carrots before systematic Dutch intervention were white, pale yellow, deep red, or rich purple, but never the bright orange color that modern consumers now consider standard and natural. Dutch plant breeders, working systematically during the late 16th and early 17th centuries, developed orange carrots, reportedly to honor William of Orange, the celebrated leader of Dutch independence from Spanish rule. Whether this patriotic origin story is historically accurate or merely apocryphal legend, the orange carrot rapidly captured European market attention through its strikingly novel appearance rather than any demonstrated superior nutrition or notably better flavor compared to existing alternatives. The orange carrot was fundamentally an annual plant that died completely and entirely after producing seed or being harvested for its edible root. This basic biological characteristic created massive commercial opportunity that perennial skirret could never possibly provide under any circumstances. Farmers choosing to grow orange carrots needed to purchase seeds every single year or dedicate significant garden space exclusively to seed production. Seed merchants and commercial nurseries could sell repeatedly to the same customers year after year, rather than making a single sale that produced food forever without further purchases. European seed companies recognized the enormous profit implications immediately and began marketing orange carrots aggressively across all available channels. The striking novelty of bright orange color provided significant marketing advantage over traditional vegetables, regardless of actual eating quality or nutritional content. Consumers who had never seen orange-colored vegetables before found them interesting, fashionable, and highly desirable. Fashion, rather than genuine function, drove initial widespread adoption, while strong commercial incentives ensured continued aggressive promotion decade after decade. Agricultural authorities throughout Europe increasingly recommended annual vegetables over traditional perennials during this critical period of rapid agricultural commercialization. Extension services, agricultural publications, gardening experts, and horticultural authorities gradually shifted their advice and recommendations away from traditional reliable perennials toward annual crops requiring purchased inputs every growing season. This systematic shift aligned perfectly with the commercial interests of seed companies, fertilizer manufacturers, tool sellers, and other agricultural suppliers who profited from gardener dependency. The advice was not necessarily incorrect, but it was certainly not neutral or unbiased either. Skirret received decreasing attention in agricultural literature as orange carrots dominated commercial recommendations. Seed catalogs that once offered skirret dropped it from their listings as demand declined. Gardeners who had never grown skirret never learned that it existed as an option. The vegetable that had sustained Europe for 15 centuries became obscure. Within 2 centuries of commercial carrot promotion, by the 20th century, skirret had effectively vanished from mainstream European and American agriculture. The modern seed industry has no commercial incentive to promote perennial vegetables that eliminate repeat customer relationships. Annual vegetable seeds represent a market worth billions of dollars globally that depends entirely on gardeners replanting every year. Seed companies invest heavily in developing, marketing, and distributing varieties that must be purchased seasonally. Their business models require customers who return year after year to buy the same products repeatedly. A perennial vegetable that eliminates this repeat purchase cycle threatens the fundamental economics of commercial seed production. Burpee, Ferrymores, and other major seed companies have never listed skirret in their mainstream catalogs during the modern era. These companies decide which vegetables American gardeners learn about by controlling catalog content and retail seed rack selection. Vegetables that appear in catalogs get planted. Vegetables excluded from catalogs fade from cultural memory. The companies have no legal obligation to offer perennials and strong financial incentive to exclude them. The carrot industry specifically benefits from consumer ignorance about superior perennial alternatives. Carrot seed and fresh carrot sales generate substantial revenue that would decline if gardeners discovered they could grow better-tasting perennial roots without annual purchases. Industry marketing promotes carrots as the default root vegetable, while alternatives receive no promotion whatsoever. The playing field is not level. Agricultural education has largely eliminated perennial vegetables from curricula that train the next generation of growers. University horticulture programs, master gardener training, and extension service publications focus almost exclusively on annual production systems. Students graduate without ever learning that perennial vegetables exist as a category. This educational gap perpetuates itself as each generation teaches the next only what they themselves were taught. The assumption that vegetables must be annual has become so deeply embedded that most gardeners never question it. The Skirret plants waiting to be established in your garden this season represent permanent, reliable food production that the commercial seed industry has spent 4 centuries systematically ensuring you would never discover or consider. A thoughtful gardener could plant Skirret exactly once and harvest, sweeter than carrot, roots every winter for a decade or considerably longer without purchasing another seed packet or plant start ever again. They would dig fresh, nutritious roots from frozen January ground, when grocery store produce has traveled thousands of miles from distant growing regions and lost most of its nutritional value and flavor during extended storage and transportation. They would divide their established plants annually to expand production steadily, until their entire winter root vegetable supply came from a single original purchase made years or even decades earlier. They would achieve genuine food security that annual crops simply cannot provide, regardless of seed company marketing claims or catalog promises. The global vegetable seed market exceeds $15 billion in annual sales worldwide. That enormous revenue stream depends entirely on gardeners replanting annually rather than establishing permanent perennial systems that produce independently year after year without additional purchases. Every Skirret division that replaces a packet of carrot seeds represents revenue that seed companies lose permanently and can never recover. The industry has overwhelming financial incentive to keep you buying annual seeds forever while actively suppressing knowledge of perennial alternatives. Every bag of carrots you purchase from grocery stores represents a crop that Skirret would have provided completely free from your own garden for years or decades. Every packet of carrot seeds you buy at inflated retail prices represents propagation material that simple Skirret division would have provided from your existing plants at absolutely zero cost. Every annual replanting represents labor, expense, and uncertainty that perennial systems eliminate permanently from the very first harvest onward. The Emperor Tiberius ruled the most powerful empire the ancient world had ever seen and demanded this specific vegetable as formal tribute from conquered peoples rather than gold or silver. Medieval monasteries preserved it carefully through centuries of social collapse and political chaos as absolutely essential food security that could not be risked. Renaissance nobles and peasants alike grew it faithfully in their gardens as standard winter provision, without which families could not reliably survive. 15 centuries of continuous European agriculture confirmed its exceptional value before commercial seed interests systematically erased it from cultural memory within just a few generations. Sweeter than any carrot variety ever developed. Plant once and harvest forever without replanting. Dig fresh roots from frozen winter ground when absolutely nothing else grows. Divide your established plants freely and never purchase propagation material again for as long as you garden. They buried this deliberately because your permanent free harvest permanently ends their perpetual paid seed sales business model. Now you know what Emperor Tiberius valued above Germanic gold and demanded as tribute from conquered nations. Now you understand exactly why you were deliberately never told. If this opens something important for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every single like and share spreads what the $15 billion seed industry has deliberately buried for 400 years to keep you buying their annual carrot seeds forever and ever. See you in the next one.